Welcome everybody to today's meeting of the Licensing Subcommittee. A little bit of housekeeping first. If the fire alarm is activated, please take the stairs down to the reception area and out of the building to the green in Hawley Square, which is the assembly point. Please do not use the lifts. Officers will assist you and advise you when it is deemed safe to return to the council offices. I don't think there's any apologies for absence. Agenda item 2, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest? Now we're going to agenda item 3, application for a new premises licence at Staples Stores, 19 St Mildred's Walk, Westgate-on-Sea. I call upon Ms Phillips, the Council's principal litigation solicitor, to explain to the parties the procedure that we will be taking during this hearing.
Thank you very much. Good morning. I'd just like everyone to know that the decisions that are made by the subcommittee today, that they're made in accordance with the Licensing Act 2003, and it's based on the information that's been presented in this agenda with any verbal submissions that's made today. The decisions aren't politically based. The subcommittee will act impartially and offer a fair and unbiased hearing of the application. As was said, we're here to consider the application for a new premises licence at Staples Stores, 19 St Mildred's Walk, Westgate-on-Sea. The application is being made by Stephen Gadd for a new premises licence, and we will hear the parties in the following order. We'll hear the licensing officer, and then we'll hear the applicant for the licence. We'll hear any representative you may have, and the representations that's made by the objectors. And each party has up to around 15 minutes to make a presentation, but you're not required to speak for 15 minutes. And following each presentation, members of the subcommittee may ask questions, and the licensing officer may ask questions, and equally you may ask questions to the licensing officer and any other person who makes representations also. At the end of the proceedings, each party will have 5 minutes to make a closing statement in the same order, and the meeting will then adjourn for the subcommittee to consider its decision. And when we adjourn, the subcommittee members, the legal officer and the clerk will remain in the council chamber to deliberate for about maybe 30 minutes, and then we'll resume for the decision to be read out by myself. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms Phillips. I would like to stress the importance of following this hearing procedure, and that there will be an opportunity for all parties to make a final presentation after questioning. Therefore, I would advise all present to please follow the procedure and to respect those speaking by not interrupting or speaking over others. If people do interrupt or speak over others, would the technical team support please present their report?
Morning, everyone. As you know, we're here to look at an application for a premises licence at Staples Stores, St Mildred's Walk, Westgate. The original application came in June last year and was advertised. And at that time, we got some representations came through then, and the hours that were applied for were, at that time, they were 11 o'clock close with 10:30 for alcohol. The licence was put on hold because there's some issues to do with planning. The premises basically has been renamed as it should be 19 St Mildred's Walk and not St Mildred's Road as it was previously. And when the planning was dealt with, the applicant obviously took notice of the objections that had been received when it was first originally put up. And so he reduced his hours to 7 o'clock with a 6:30 for alcohol, a 7 o'clock closing. So those hours are now set in planning, and that means that the applicant or anybody else who should take on that premises cannot operate out of those hours unless they go through new planning permission. So there's no representations from the police or any of the other responsible authorities. So over to you to listen to everything and make your decision.
Thank you. Mr. Gerd and Ms Young, would you present your case, please?
Just to reiterate what Alison said, we originally put it in last summer. We had problems with the planning, and then speaking with Alison and also the environmental health, we then reduced the hours. The main reason really why we want to put this application in is ultimately just to drive some revenue. We all know the situation globally. We don't need to beat that drum. It's hard, it's hard at the moment, and we're just looking for an extra revenue stream to bring in some extra cash. And the actual premise is, we took over a pretty dilapidated building, if I'm honest with you, and we've spent, money, time and energy bringing it up to, a nice spec, and I think it's definitely brought the area up. We've installed, colour CCTV, and we've put fences in, we've got an alarm system. That CCTV, that actual corner where we are, there's no doubt that it's more secure. There's no doubt that it's more secure for us being there. And I think as well, it's just about, look at small businesses. I'm a chef by trade. I do run a bakery. I've kind of fallen into that through COVID, and just we've done well. We've opened a second shop, and it's just about, ideally what I wanted to do, we've shortened the hours on a Friday and Thursday afternoon from when we closed the bakery, so from 2 till 6 in the evening, to have a few small plates, whether that's plates of cheese, plates of charcuterie, and a nice alcohol offer. And then also as well, it does give us the chance, if someone phones up and says, look, could we have a party, or not a party, like a baby shower or a private function, that we have the ability to offer them cooked food or platters, as well as alcohol. Alcohol does bring in money, and it does make money. I'm a chef by trade, and I like the idea of that. And just to note, we have had 2 Sunday roasts there, which we spoke with the licensing, and everyone bought BYO, and everything that was highlighted in the objections, it didn't come to fruition at all. We attract a lovely demographic of people. We've had no complaints from anyone, we've no complaints from the police to the licensing officer. And I think we don't want to upset the neighbours, right? We live and work together. I think it's very reasonable, and we spoke to the environmental health, and it kind of went back and forth, and we both agreed that 7 o'clock in the evening to leave is super reasonable. It means that I can't open for dinner. I can't do an evening service as such. I can only operate between 2 and 6. Now, really, 2 and 6 isn't the ideal time, but if that's what keeps the peace and that's what keeps everyone happy, then so be it. I'll work around that. And then also going forward, once we're a bit more established, to offer, if we can do a Sunday roast and have a nice glass of wine with it, that's that. It's never going to turn into a bar. I'm a father of family of 3. There's 3 children. I don't want to turn into a bar. I'm not interested in running a bar. There's not going to be taps. There's not going to be, bar stools and fruit machines and anything that is associated with the objections. We all know that type of establishment, the licensing that knows that as well. We're not going to be that. We're going to have bottles of beer. We're going to have a selection of natural craft wines that are selected, which is the biggest circle at the moment of supporting local suppliers, supporting local distributors, supporting, smaller producers of wine and beer, which again, they need to be supported. I'm not going to have pints of Carlsberg and Grolsch and Stella on tap. It's not going to be that. It's not going to be shots or anything like that. It's going to be well sourced and well executed alcohol range, as well as the food. How many times a year I'm going to do this? I don't know. I don't think it's going to be a regular weekly thing. I don't think it's going to be a monthly thing. It's when we can do it. I mean, I currently work 7-day week, so the idea to do it, but it'd be good to have, if the opportunity does, if the phone rings tomorrow and someone says, Steve, I want to have a baby shower, or there's 12 of us meeting, could you do some charcuterie and a couple of bottles of wine? Great. It's just an extra revenue stream. And I just want to say on the objections, I think the idea that, I just want to highlight this, because it's the idea that children wouldn't feel safe in their garden, and extra drug activity around the establishment, as well as urinating. I'm not too sure what kind of establishments they think it's going to be. But I can assure you that is just not going to happen in any sense. I've got 3 children. The police have been down twice with 2 different police. They've changed both police. So when we first applied and the second, they've changed police. Both police officers, there's been no complaints. There's no worries whatsoever, not even a quibble about the objections that came up, right? They just said, okay, this is fine as long as 6:30, as long as we've got the right, the papers up and the monthly CCTV, there's some guidance, but there's been no problems. And if there was a problem, we wouldn't be sat here. We're not looking to upset the local neighbours. We're really not. I've had enough drama with Reading Street, my other shop, and now the neighbours are back on side because they understand that, it's 2 people running a small business, looking after 3 children, trying to make ends meet. Let's be honest. And this isn't a sob story. This is the reality of small businesses. It's hard work, and I don't want to create any more work for councillors or licensing department or the police or any kind of services that doesn't need to be. And I think that, and I think what we've put in is very sensible, and I think we'll manage it correctly. And if there is any problems, then I'm there all the time. We can mitigate it and we can work it out. And I'll talk for England, so I'll just leave it at that. I just think it's a set. I think I'll end on when we originally applied. Probably a bit too excessive with the hours. Talking to Alison and environmental health, we've reduced the hours, and I honestly think the objections are in some case ridiculously a bit wild, and I think Staples Stores has made a positive impact in the area as well as the location of where it is, because the location isn't a back alley. It's a little bit fruity down there with some of the people who live at the top, but with the cameras that we've got, with our hours that we're open, I definitely think it's an asset to the community. And that's all I've got to say. Thank you.
Thank you. That was very well spoken. Ms Young, do you want to add anything? Are you happy with that? Okay, does the licensing team have any questions for Mr Gadd and Ms Youngs?
Can I just ask how many does your premises actually seat? How many,
Seating at one time is, depending on how...
Will you have any draft beer, or is it all just casks?
It doesn't suit, that's not...
No.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry. There'll be no draft beer, no.
Any spirits, or is it just literally wine and ciders and bottled?
There might be some spirits, there might be some pre-made cocktails, so the kind of the ready-made, I mean, like Negronis, margaritas, that kind of thing. It won't be like, the sex on the beach, that kind of stuff. It will just be, the classic ones.
No more questions? No? Now, members of the public making representations may ask the applicant's question. This is not the point in the meeting to state your case or opinions. This will come later, so please stick to it. Just any questions. If you do not have any questions, please say no questions. Mr Patrick, do you have any questions for Miss Gadd or Miss Young?
Yes.
Why was Reading Street? Does that have an alcohol licence? Did he apply for an alcohol licence? And yes, to Mr Gadd. Did he have any complaints from the neighbours?
No, we can't ask that.
you're discussing this.
We're just discussing this.
This licence is what we're talking about. We're not talking about the other one.
All right.
Yeah, but that is not relevant. This is a new licence. That's fine. That's fine. So, do we have a Mr Doherty? Mrs Doherty. You look nothing like a mister.
Sorry, that was my query when you arrived.
His wife at the bottom, I think he applied because only he filled the thing in, but his wife will be represented.
So, Mrs. Patrick, do you have any questions for Mr. Gadd or Miss Young?
I don't, but I'm going to cover it all in my presentation. Okay.
Do members of the committee have any questions for Mr. Gadd or Miss Young?
No, covered everything I was going to ask.
Yeah. This is the point of the meeting at which members of the public making representations will get to present their case. Mrs. Patrick, please can you make your representation?
Mrs. Doherty.
No, I've got, sorry, Mr. Patrick, sorry. Can you make your representation? Understand that you're also speaking on behalf of Miss Mears.
Leave it.
40 homes surround Staples stores. We live just metres away from the stores, so we feel we'd be affected. There is some doubt about the public right-of-way of the alley. It's very bumpy. You know, the council don't seem to want to take responsibility. So we're worried that when people have had a drink walking down that alley, you know, whose responsibility is it if they have a fall? We don't want to stop Mr. Gadd earning any money, but not at our expense. The alley is very quiet. And there has never been a problem in the alley as far as I know. I know he's put CCTV up and lighting, but I think that's for his own use really, you know, to protect his building, not our homes. The other point is most of the houses there have garages. If we want to put garages in our homes, in our gardens, our cars will come just metres away from the front door of Staples stores. If I drive my car out, it will only be a metre, maybe a metre and a half away. So everybody else has garages. I could, you know, apply for that. And that's about it really. I just think that we don't have a problem with it being a baker's. We have a problem with the alcohol licence, really. You know, it's a residential area. There is 40 homes around there, and you know, just metres away. So, we'd like to stop the alcohol licence.
Can you just turn off your? Thank you. Are you making another representation on behalf of? Okay. Mrs. Doherty, can you please make your representation?
Yes, first of all, I'd like to say I totally understand your situation of it's very hard in small businesses these days. And I would first like to say that I'm happy, I'm going to read it because it's clearer for me. I'd first like to say that I'm happy that there's a bakery in St Mildred's Walk with great products that not only I have enjoyed, but members of my family, extended family, friends and colleagues have enjoyed as well. Fabulous. I also understand the concept of this sort of bistro bakery as an attractive business. Also, over the years, we've had no problem with all the other businesses that were previously on this premises and those who are at present working within this area. My house backs directly onto the bakery, so it's about from my back gate 1 metre away. So, I mean, it's great in the morning. You can just open the gate and I come and get their lovely sourdough bread. But I do want to exercise my right to be able to express myself on my opposition, unfortunately, regarding this alcohol licence for Staples. Under the Prevention of Public Nuisance laws, the main issue is that the bakery is in a courtyard. I know this has been expressed in, everybody said this, but I want to reiterate this, where approximately 40 to 50 apartments and some houses, which includes mine, back onto and overlook the bakery. Noise resonates very easily in this area. Most of the rooms overlooking the courtyard are bedrooms, where some of the occupants, including my husband, work in the service industry and some in the health industry and work on shift. Over the years, everyone has been extremely respectful, including the bakery up till now, to each other regarding noise and disturbance in the evening. We are generally a kind and tolerant neighbourhood. Also, the businesses that are at present in this area and were previously there all respected the privacy and respect for each neighbour. The serving of alcohol and alcohol-related issues could produce disturbance due to drunken disorderly behaviour in a residential and respectful neighbourly environment. If this alcohol licence is granted to Staples, a big concern would be if the bakery were to be sold and changes made, turning the business into a bar or brewery, or if the bakery themselves, although Mr. Gadd has stipulated that he doesn't plan on doing it, turn it into a bar eventually. So from experience, this could cause a good deal of disturbance linked to alcohol-related issues. So I give an example. So for us in Ethelbert Square, so the other side of my house, we had a workman's club, which functioned for many years quite peacefully, and we were okay with it. It was then sold on where there was a lot of disturbance for the residents, including, so my sitting room overlooks the park, including drug dealing to the customers. It wasn't the bar as such, but they were waiting outside, selling drugs in the darker part of the park, opposite our houses, and in the darker corners of St. Mildred's Walk at the first part. I know this won't happen if it's a 7 o'clock thing, but the new request for a licence until 7 p.m. was previously a request for 11 p.m. This gives us no guarantee in the neighbourhood that the goalpost will change once again in the future, allowing this present request for a licence to be pushed from 7 till 11, or whoever it's sold on to, maybe. Regarding public safety, I would like to draw attention to the traffic in St. Mildred's Walk. This is an area used mainly by delivery trucks, loading and unloading for businesses on the high street, and for the delivery service for the medication stored at the back of Paydon's, the chemist, which is directly next door to the bakery, Staples. Overall, movement of cars is not constant, but can occur in waves and could cause public safety problems in a narrow and badly lit area. I feel I've covered the main issues here and have expressed valid concerns for myself and the neighbourhood regarding this matter.
Thank you. Do the licensing team have any questions for Mr. Patrick or Miss Doherty?
I'd just like to state where the 7 o'clock hours are set in planning. So planning takes precedence over licensing. So we could not increase hours for that premises unless a planning application was put in. And if a planning application is put in, that is when you would have chance to say something, because you would all be notified that a planning application has gone in. It was the licence, and with discussions with planning, it was agreed, and environmental health, it was agreed to pull it back to 7 o'clock. It has to shut at 7 o'clock.
So you could apply again?
It would have to go via planning first. It cannot come to licensing to have the hours increased. It would have to go via planning first.
Could I reply? I fully understand that, but the problem is it could be a bit of a Pandora's box. So initially it starts like that, and then the thing sort of develops onto other things if the business is sold on. So that's our main concern. I know Mr. Gadd has invested a lot of money in his business, and I appreciate that. But we too, in our homes and our gardens and our environment. So just want to take note of that. Okay, sorry.
Mr. Gadd and Miss Young, have you any questions for Mr. Patrick and Miss Doherty? No. Do the members of the committee have any questions? Just one question. You mentioned deliveries round the back, and you mentioned the chemist, Paydon's. So what time is their delivery?
I don't really monitor the times, but I know that at times we have an auction house that's open, so people come to collect things from the auction house, or things are delivered to pay. I don't know the times of that, but they do have a delivery service where they take medication to the public. So there is movement. It's not sorry, it's not constant, but there is movement. And to manoeuvre, it's quite difficult around there, depending on the size of the vehicle, of course.
So are you saying that having a licence will stop deliveries being picked up?
No, that's more on a public safety issue. If you have families with, for example, young children and they're not paying attention, and you know, it's sort of an awkward area. Okay.
Any more questions from the committee? Thank you. I would now like to ask each party to sum up and make final representations. Mr. Patrick, can you make your final comments?
I think I've covered everything.
Mr. Gadd and Miss Young, do you have any? Would you like to sum up at all?
No, just to say that I hope if it goes either way that we can be agreeable on it, and I think if it does get passed, either it does or it doesn't. I'm not in the business to upset people, and also on selling the business, really, you know, that's something that is out of our hands, and I can't, you know, I don't think the worry can be on that. And also the one thing I would say is our landlords they're friends of ours, they're very respectable as well, they're local people, and I think they would also make a call on who they would sell the business to. So I would just say that the trust has to be in us and the landlords, that we would be respectful. Thank you.
Thank you very much. With the exception of the board members, the Democratic Service Officer and the Legal Officer, can I please ask all those present to leave so that the board can come to a decision? You will be invited back into the room for the decision to be announced. Thank you very much. I would now like to invite Ms Phillips, the Principal Litigation Solicitor, to read a summary of the subcommittee's determination.
Thank you. In the application for a new premises licence at Staple Stores, 19 St Mildred's Walk, Westgate-on-Sea, Kent, made to Thanet District Council as the relevant licensing authority in accordance with the Licensing Act, and upon consideration of the representations made by the licensing authority, the applicant, and the representations from Mr Patrick and Ms Doherty, the subcommittee did consider everything that was said against the licensing objectives, against the particulars of the Licensing Act, but it is the decision of the Licensing Committee to grant the application today.
Thank you all very much for your time today. Meeting concluded at 10:35.